Hi everyone, welcome back to Rings and Things. We have Miss Jessie back here to talk all about ring settings and styles. So there's so many options, first of all, and combinations depending on the cut of your center stone, what size band you want, all of these different things. Do you want something with diamonds in the setting or not diamonds, no diamonds in the setting? So today I want to break down all of those things. Let's actually teach some of the jargon lingo that we've been trying to avoid on this podcast, but some of it you kind of need to know, even if you want to do a simple Google search around like a style you saw somewhere. And so we're going to try to help give you all sort of the breakdown of what that is and just some of the terminology so you can just be more educated about what you're thinking about.
We're going to keep it nice and simple, though, here, Simone.
Yes, nice and simple. We will graphically show you some options probably in this
somewhere
arena.
Up here, somewhere there.
Yeah, we'll add some stuff.
Yeah.
But cool. So let's talk about settings. And really, when we say setting, what are we really talking about?
We're talking about anything that is not the center diamond.
Okay.
So a setting is what holds your center diamond, the baby of your ring, if you will, in place.
And that is, let's say, functionally what at the end of the day it needs to be able to do.
Yes. Your center stone literally is your baby. It is the creme de la creme of your ring. You want it to be secure. Of course, you want it to look beautiful and be exactly what you want to see. But if it doesn't hold your center diamond, there is no ring. There is no ring.
There's no ring left. Exactly. So there's tons of different settings that people can go through. Let's maybe start with the simpler designs and then sort of build our way up to some of the more ornate, complicated, technically, intense settings that you see out there. So one that I know a lot of people are really into is just the solitaire setting. Can you tell us about what that actually means? Like, are there different types of solitaire bands? Like, how does that work?
So a solitaire is your classic engagement ring. It is your center stone, typically on a plain band or a band with a few diamonds on it, on the band itself. And that is it. It is timeless, elegant. I think like classic Tiffany's 1800s engagement ring when I think that. Somebody who just wants their center stone to shine and sparkle and be the center of the ring and the center of their design.
Literally. Okay. And I know on solitaire rings, predominantly no diamonds on the band, right? We're just talking about a solid gold.
Typically solid gold, solid white gold, yellow gold. You can put diamonds on the band and have like a pave diamond, which is simply a small diamond.
Okay.
In a tiny little setting. But usually it's quite simple in design as a whole.
Okay.
When it comes to the basket of a ring, that is simply what the center stone is held in. You can have a couple different designs, whether that is a traditional basket, which most solitaires are, or a petal basket. I'm assuming that I'll have some help over here in this kind of department. But your ring is going to be very simple overall. This is a beautiful setting for somebody, honestly, that wants to do a lot of stacking with their wedding bands. I know we talked about that earlier in an episode. Stacking rings, it's a really great idea because then you kind of have that very plain base and plain foundation to then add more to it over time.
Yeah, nice. And so the sort of depth and roundness of that solitaire band. So I've seen some that have been more like true, like rounded, some that have almost like a flatter band. So is that something that would still be considered a solitaire if it's just a plain, white gold band? What are some of the modifications that people can do just even with that? So you can still have a simple look, but you can do, little things to make it still subtly different than a standard solitaire band.
It's the band style. So a rounded band, also known as like a spaghetti noodle band, if you will, that is your rounded band. It's typically the most comfortable on the body because it doesn't have any edges to it at all. It's really luxurious, pulling it on and off of your finger. But you can also do a flat band style. It usually bounces ounce is a little bit more light to it because it is flatter and usually a little wider in style. So it just depends on your preference. That one has ever so slight corners to it. So somebody who's not used to wearing a ring on their finger sometimes finds that a little uncomfortable for the daily.
Okay. Who's the sort of archetype of someone who would get like that flatter band? Do you tend to see people, because I feel like I see the spaghetti band, right? Really, really common. But that flatter band, I feel like it's definitely seems like someone who is maybe a bit more stylistic in motion. Like they kind of want to do a little edge to their design.
You're 100% correct. It's somebody that wants something ever so slightly different than what they typically see. I'd say like more of that flat band usually doesn't have diamonds in it. And it's something that like you kind of want a little bit more metal heavy, but you still want your center stone to sparkle and shine and be like the spotlight of your ring.
Okay.
It's a little bit more Art Deco in design, that thicker, like flatter band. So somebody that wants something a little bit of a twist on that modern, if you will.
Yeah, okay. And so when you talk about the basket on these rings, you mentioned a hidden basket. No, you didn't say hidden basket.
You can do a basket, but baskets in general, you're onto something.
Okay,
so a basket in general, it's simply what holds your center stone in place.
Yep.
With a basket, usually, especially depending on the carat size of your center stone, regardless of shape, you want to have a guardrail on it. So a guardrail is a little piece of metal that goes around your center stone. It holds the prongs in place. It keeps those prongs nice and secure on your ring. Prongs are simply those poles that stick out and like grab that center stone. With the guardrail, there's two types of guardrails you can do.
Okay.
One is just a plain solid piece of metal, timeless. Or something really popular today, it's called a hidden halo. It simply means there's diamonds in the guardrail.
Yes.
So a hidden halo is something that when I'm looking at my ring like this and I'm admiring it and going, oh my gosh, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I don't see that. When it goes like this and you're from the side right here, that's when I'll see that little extra sparkle of diamonds around that band. It's really cute, especially if like you're writing or doing something, if you're left-handed, you're grabbing something. It's almost a detail that when you go like this and you show your friends, they're not going to know it's there, but you do.
Right, because you're seeing it from the side.
Because you see your ring from the side more often than when you're not going like this every day.
Yeah, and it makes sense too, right? Because what you just described is sort of like a blinged out version of the guardrail that the guardrail at the end of the day is there to secure your diamond, secure your prongs, make sure it stays sturdy. So adding a little bling to that just makes it feel like you're sort of dressing up your whole ring rather than having sort of a functional piece there that maybe you have for function but not necessarily style. And so adding diamonds to that kind of gives you that style element.
And it's all personal preference. I mean, at the end of the day, me as a designer, my biggest priority besides you loving your ring is making sure that is going to last forever. So I am going to be the person that's going to go, you need to have this to be able to support your center stone.
Yeah.
Your center stone is heavy. It is a rock on your hand, literally.
A literal
you
rock,
need to have it supported. But if you're going to support it anyway, why not see if you can add some extra style to it?
Yes, exactly.
And with those hidden halos, yeah, they can be diamonds and you can have diamonds on the side. But another fun thing is maybe that's where you add gemstones and you add some color to your design, or you add a little secret something. I mean, there's so many options when it comes to settings and like adding that little custom flair to it that people don't realize from your day to day.
Yeah. And I love that too, because again, it's giving you both style and function. It's not just about one or the other, and you don't have to compromise one or the other when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And so on the solitaire also we see prongs. And so are there situations where someone does not get a guardrail?
There are.
Okay.
Sometimes people don't get guardrails and they just have their prongs holding their center stone.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the center stone, I'm never, ever, ever going to recommend it, especially with the trend of getting bigger and bigger with those center diamonds. Your diamond is heavy. You're going to be grabbing at things. You wear this ring on your finger every day, right? So picture this. I just went grocery shopping. I am going to the trunk. I have to carry all these groceries in. I'm not going to go in multiple trips and just grab 2 grocery bags at a time. I'm going to grab all 20 of them and just carry them like this.
All of them.
Well, as I'm carrying all 20 of them up the staircase, down the hall, through my front door, those bags slip around. They slip around, they slide around, and I don't want one of those bags hitting it because my ring is going to twist and turn, and it's going to ever so slightly hit in the wrong direction. If you do that once, no, it's not going to cause a problem. If I have heavy grocery bags full of milk jugs and all of these different fruits, over time, metal can bend. It's just the nature of the beast. Those guardrails help keep those prongs in place so that you know that if something were to bend ever so slightly, you're not going to have an issue with it.
Yeah, it's reinforced.
It's reinforced. If you don't have those, then your diamond can get loose, and you could have that horrible situation happen where you don't have a diamond anymore, and you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I mean, it's really, you know, one of those things where you think prongs are doing all the work, but the prongs have to be supported too.
They have to be supported by something.
Yeah. Interesting. So tell me about, you know, what style. I mean, is it popular now for people to not do guardrails?
It's not as popular anymore. I think that people have come to realize as also the hidden halo is just so trendy because it's so pretty. I mean, most people want that little extra something.
Yeah.
And when people think I have to add diamonds onto my ring like that hidden halo, it's not that expensive to add on. So it's like a cute little something that makes your ring different without like a huge price tag attached to it.
Okay.
So I think that it's more and more popular to have that guardrail. That's something you should discuss with your jewelry designer. If your designer is not telling you the security of your ring and how it's being held in place and if it's going to be secure for daily wear, that's a warning sign.
Yeah,
you should have a designer that's going to tell you the good with the bad.
Yep, totally. And I mean, like you said, you know, with the hidden halo aspect of it, when you look down at your ring, you're not going to see it. You're really going to see the beauty of your center stone, and that's it.
That's it.
If that's the look you want, go for it. And so now that we're on this sort of halo space, can we start talking about the other halo?
Yeah, that is the total polar opposite. So a hidden halo is exactly that. It is hidden from the eye. The other option is having a halo around your center stone. So a hidden halo has that hidden beauty. A regular halo, you're going to see it from this top view. It's going to have smaller diamonds or some sort of intricate pattern to it that enhances the look of your stone as a whole.
So when someone goes for that halo effect, I would imagine that it kind of gives them a look of a bigger stone, right?
It does.
You kind of give a look, you have more surface area on your finger covered.
Yeah, you have it gives sometimes the look of having a larger center diamond from far away. It's like a push-up bra for your ring, if you will, in the best kind of manner.
Yeah,
it makes it all look a little bit bigger, and bigger is better a lot of the time for people. Alternatively, some people like to put different shaped stones in their halo and have a totally different look. Art Deco in design, I know I mentioned that earlier, that tends to have all kinds of different shapes. So you can make it more of a ballerina halo, which images again, a ballerina a ballerina halo. It has baguettes to it. It has round diamonds to it. It's a really pretty, very stylistic halo. Not every halo has to be just tiny little diamonds surrounding a big diamond.
Yes. And I feel like a lot of the halo rings I see right now are also cushion cut diamonds. Can you get a halo around any style
diamond? So a lot of the time a halo can do a great job enhancing the shape of a stone. An emerald cut, for example, has a really unique shape to it. So does a radiant. Having a halo around it it helps show the unique cut to it. You can put it against any cut you want.
Yeah, I have one of our replica rings, and it's a pear with a halo around the pear, and it's beautiful. Like, I love it, and I agree with you. I feel like, you know, if you're someone who is going maybe smaller on sort of the surface area of your center stone and you want to add some pizzazz, it's not a super expensive way to get a bigger look, but not necessarily a huge, you know, budget add-on.
Absolutely. And also, settings are something you can upgrade to down the road. At the end of the day, your center stone is the most expensive part of a ring. So let's say that you do a halo and 10 years from now, you're like, I don't feel like a halo anymore.
Right.
Hey, honey, it's our 10-year anniversary. Let's change this up a little bit. And it's just a fun way to, like, change up the look of your ring while still having that same classic, like, center stone that you said I do with in the first place.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so special, right? It's like what you were proposed with, what you got married with, and keeping that as a part of your ring over time. You know, we haven't talked about Toi Moi yet in this episode, but again, like thinking about if I were going to upgrade my ring and maybe, you know, we got a smaller stone because we were younger in life, but on the upgrade, you could pair that first stone
with a second
stone and upgrade that second stone and get something a little bit bigger and really create these like sort of journey moments of your life through your
Yeah.
ring.
And trois mois is exactly that. It's two stones forming one singular ring.
Love that.
Sometimes it can be one bigger stone and one smaller stone. Sometimes it's two stones the exact same size. Majority of the time, it's two totally different cuts of stone. It doesn't have to be, though. And it simply means you and me in French. So it's two people coming together. So maybe that's even past you in your relationship and future you or present you in your relationship, and kind of bringing the past to the present, or a previous stone that's already an heirloom, and bringing that into effect.
I love that. I love that. And so before we go too far away from halos and guardrails, I wanted to talk more about prongs and sort of like number of prongs and prong placement. Is that something that is pretty standard, or can you sort of decide where you want your prongs to be or how many you want based on your stone?
You are talking my love language. When it comes to prongs, again, I want my center stone secured no matter what I am designing for my clients. So I want to have ideally at least 4 prongs on a ring. So for like a round diamond, typically you have about 4. However, the sky is the limit. You can do 8, you can do 6, you can do 20 if you want to have tiny little prongs. You can do whatever kind of look you want to hold your center stone in place. The one thing I would say you definitely need is certain cuts, like a pear cut, for example. It has a nice little point at the top or bottom, depending on how you're wearing it. Any points to your ring, you want those covered by prongs. My reasoning for saying that is simply because a diamond, its Achilles heel is going to be any sharp point to it. Sometimes in trends, you'll see that prongs are not covering those sharp points. Don't recommend that unless you're very, very delicate on your ring.
And who is in real life, though?
No one is. No one is. It's beautiful in an Instagram photo. It's absolutely stunning.
But is anyone that, and also like that sharpness?
It's sharpness. It can cut you. Diamonds are sharp. Diamonds literally can cut skin. So not only can it cut skin, it can also pull on clothing. As I'm grabbing a blanket and pulling it up my body, it can snag on like the things that you're wearing. It's just not a great idea for lifestyle 9 times out of 10.
So we're definitely going to be covering points with prongs.
I would say on average, every ring has at least 4 prongs. But if you have 6 or 8 or 10, it's also a very nice stylistic change, and it's something you don't see as often today, which could be really different and great for the girl that wants something classic but a little twist.
Adding a couple extra notes, or maybe choosing the number of prongs that's representative of your relationship, or maybe the number of years you were together prior to marriage, or whatever that may be. But just another, like you said, another way to customize your ring that you can decide. But 4 is the bottom. 4 is the floor.
4 is the floor. I had a client that 8 was her lucky number, so we did 8 prongs in her ring. It really just depends on what you want to do, but that's a fun little way to add something.
The
more security you have on a stone, though, the happier I personally am, I will say.
You just know the hard work you put in is going to stay there, and it's not going anywhere.
Or vice versa, you could bezel set your ring. Bezel setting is when there's metal all the way around your ring, as opposed to having prongs as a whole. It's actually the most secure you could possibly make a ring, because there's metal holding the entire thing. Everything at all. And it's a really pretty setting, too. Especially for those, I go rock climbing, I'm an adventurous person, I do like this, that, and the other every single day. I'm hard on my hands. So it's very stylistically a choice, but it's also very secure for your daily wear, too.
And so when you're thinking about bezel settings, I mean, I think even within those, there's tons of ways that you could do it, whether it's something that's laying pretty flat, like we talked about before, the depth of your stone could make it to where you're having something a little bit more flat, or just doesn't have like, too raised above your, but you can also still have a raised to a degree bezel setting. There's
to a degree. You always want to make sure that the bezel is covering the top of the diamond, just so it's physically held in place. But you can do half bezels, which means it's only covering like part of the diamond. It can cover the entire diamond. There's different ways you can do everything.
What would you say stylistically connects with the bezel setting more? Is there an era? Is there a type of person? Where does the bezel setting fit?
It's my Art Deco gals.
It
is very Mr. Gatsby, Great Gatsby, 1920s. era
Okay.
through and through.
Yeah.
But it's gotten more and more popular back in today's society too. The bezel setting is a great way to also make a stone look larger because there's still something surrounding your stone, just not diamonds.
Yep. Okay. And so for bezel settings, I'm imagining we're using more metal. So from a price point perspective, are we going up in cost with a bezel compared to a solitaire? Are we staying pretty much the same because it's flat? How does that work?
Depends on the size of your center stone. Of course, more metal means a little more expensive, but also more diamonds mean a little more expensive. It all just depends on what kind of center stone we're talking about, what kind of metal we're talking about. I would never say to somebody, don't do this stylistically because you're worried about that. We'll figure out a way to make what you want come to reality with, or at least get a look very close.
Yep, absolutely.
There's options. There's always options.
Yeah. Okay, and so on the bezel setting, are you seeing it predominantly in yellow gold? Are we seeing some white gold, platinums? What's the most common?
I would say most commonly is actually yellow gold right now. Because if you're going to put metal around your center stone, it's a stylistic choice. You want it to pop.
Yeah.
You want it to pop on your ring. You want to notice it. And when you have a white diamond and that yellow gold setting around it, it kind of just adds this funky flair to your ring and this funky kind of vibe.
Yeah, love that. Are people using any other metals on settings? So we talk about yellow gold, white gold, platinum, rose gold. Any other metals you work with or recommend?
I don't. Those are the hardest for a reason. They're used the most often for a reason. That's typically what I would recommend. Within that, there's different types that you can do. There's 14 karat gold and there's 18 karat gold. 14 karat gold is less of a gold concentrate to it. It's 14 karat gold and it has a little bit more of a mixed metal look to it when it comes down to how it's composed. 18 karat gold is more gold to it. So it's more pure in gold. I don't recommend going higher than 18 karat because then it gets softer and softer. When Bruno Mars was talking about 24 karat magic, great song. Can't do 24 karat in a ring.
Those are what are
the reason they're so popular is because they're what's structurally supportive to your ring. They're not going to tarnish on you. They're not going to change on you, and they're going to last the test of time when they're made correctly in a setting.
Yeah. It's so interesting, you bring that up because obviously, we're talking about 14 karat gold and 18 karat gold and 18 karat gold being more pure. So that sort of tells the mind, okay, higher number on gold. That's the more pure, more expensive, better version.
Which it's more expensive. It's also ever so slightly a little softer.
Yeah, but it's softer.
It's softer.
Like if you're thinking about, your band being your protector of your precious big baby stone, you want something's got to give.
Something's got to give.
Be the harder, stronger thing. And so, do you ever talk to clients about that? Where we talked about, on the most scale, diamonds being 10 and gemstones, can be anywhere between 8 and 7 or what have you. Do you try to balance that as well to say maybe we need a stronger sort of band to make sure that we can handle this stone?
Yeah, the more diamonds that are in a setting, I think you should go more 14 karat gold just because it's ever so slightly softer. Whenever you put diamonds in a setting, in order to set that diamond, you have to carve out little holes in that gold. So then there's less gold in your setting as a whole. So you want that gold to be ever so slightly stronger to be able to support the fact that you have so many diamonds going on.
Okay.
It's not 14 karat versus 18 karat. It's not so predominantly different that you're going to go, my ring is going to combust on my finger. It's just a problem. I'm not going to have a ring. But it is a little bit of a difference. It's also a little bit cheaper to do 14 karat than 18 karat for the exact same look for less.
Yep. Okay. And it sounds like you kind of get a stronger metal when you go 14 karat over 18 karat, just given. Okay, so those are things to think about. If you are putting, small pave diamonds, small teeny diamonds on your band, 14 karat sounds
14
like
karat is what I would recommend.
Yeah, just to get the durability in there. Okay, very cool. What if someone wanted a sterling silver?
Sterling silver, I don't necessarily recommend. Simply because 2 reasons. 1, it's a little bit softer.
Okay.
So it's not going to necessarily last you as long.
Okay.
And 2, it tarnishes over time. So you have to go get that ring cleaned even more often because it's going to start blackening. Yes, you can clean it, but it's going to start dulling more quickly. It's going to lose it's like shininess and beautiful like luster to it. It's also going to scratch a little bit more, so you're going to like not have that really reflective look that you want for your ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, you know, everything's a compromise. You're thinking about, hey, maybe I don't have the budget for a platinum, you know, diamond ring, and so I'm considering a sterling silver moissanite ring, right? And like, you know, again, we talk about a lot about on this podcast. Choose whatever you want. Choose whatever works for you.
Be happy.
Be happy. But we want you to know the impact of some of those happy moments now, short term, right? My budget right now, the decisions I make right now. If you choose sterling silver, if you choose moissanite, there's just some things that may happen down the line.
That it may not last the test of time.
Right. And so those are just considerations you just want to know about. And sterling silver is like the example, right? Are there other metals that you would say you've had people ask for in settings, and you just kind of like, I want to give you that look, but that metal is just not going to last?
I would say 99% of people would ask for like a black metal ring. Any sort of black metal-y vibe ring, that very like rock and roll kind of dark tone.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But every single one of those is a plating on top of gold, whether that's white gold traditionally or yellow gold. As you're wearing this ring, that color is going to scratch off of it. So I don't recommend that 9 times out of 10 either.
Yeah. I've seen some inspo photos recently with like that black band, and I couldn't tell what it was, but you're saying it's a plating.
It's a plating.
And for us, you know, at Wove, we do not do plating. We just feel like it doesn't last you long. You will start to look again dull. And you know, we want to build things that will have the same look as when they are delivered. Yeah. 40 years down the line. So again, there are some, you know, compromises you can make for budget or, you know, access. But at the same time, you will deal with the consequences of that later.
I'm trying to make an heirloom. I'm trying to make something for forever. So I don't necessarily recommend that look. There are different ways you can add that kind of color in. Maybe it's using black diamonds or some sort of different element to it. Maybe it's how we design the band or design the setting to have a little more rocker chick vibe, if that's what you're thinking, or rock and roll look.
Or black diamonds. You know, using some other colors or other gemstones to kind of bring out that that feel. It is. Do you see that coming into popularity though? Like, is it one of those things where it just like kind of like shoots up on search and Pinterest, and you start to just
sometimes
see more?
I would say it's just the person. It depends on the person and what they want. I have clients that go, I want a ring that looks like my fiance went through a cave on a treasure hunt down like a rainforest in search for my ring. It's a Lord of the Rings style. Like, I went through an adventure to go get it. It is a mystical, magical thing. And I'm like, let's make it. Let's do it. I have people that are like, I like nature and I want a nature-inspired design. So we do that. Or I want the sparkliest ring in the world. I want this to look like it was made from a royal family. And that is the quest. Like, totally fun. All of them are beautiful. Rock and roll style. Totally, like, when you think these things, a certain element comes in your head. And yes, it's different for everybody, but it definitely, like, gives you that kind of style. And I would say that is definitely something that's up and trending.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that's one of the most pivotal points about working with a designer or just working with someone you trust on these rings is you can't just decide your setting on style. You have to decide it on durability. So finding that compromise of, okay, I want that, you know, adventure look. I want it. Maybe it's the way that we engrave something or the way that we create the setting and have like different divots in there to kind of give it. But there are ways that we can do it that don't compromise the longevity of your ring.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be hand engraving your ring. It could be changing the style of your ring or the thickness of the band or just adding these really cool elements to it that don't change the composition of it. Don't make it so you're like, I feel like I can never wear this. Like, of course, there are times you shouldn't wear your ring. You shouldn't wear it when you're working out. You shouldn't wear it when you're sleeping simply because you can hurt yourself. It's, again, a diamond. There's certain moments that, you don't want to wear it. But 9 times out of 10, I want to show off I'm engaged. Like, oh my gosh. I want every single person to ask me about it.
Yep, totally. And so we're on this tip of like when not to wear your ring. Are there any settings that you are just, you know, not a fan of, that you don't recommend, that you try to steer people away from?
I know I'm about to say this and everybody's gonna be like, I don't want to hear anything else she has to say. The super, super thin bands No,
Tough.
guys, tough. We can have a thin look, but that doesn't mean it has to be wildly thin in order to do that, because you're telling me you want to put this big top heavy thing on a super, super thin design. It's not going to last. It's not going to last.
And we're trying to preserve diamonds here, guys. We are trying to keep them on our hands and not floating in the wind somewhere.
I'm not saying that it has to be this big, thick, chunky, like juicy design. But what I am saying is, depending on how big your center stone is, will depend on what can support it and what can hold it. I feel like we're at a race right now at the bottom of how thin can you make a setting and make it last on your finger. And the reason that that hasn't been something you see when you think of vintage design, when you think of your parents' ring, when you think of that, it's simply because it doesn't last. And that's why you don't see rings from 10, 20, 30 years ago that have this super thin design. It's just not going to stick around.
Yeah, it's not. And your ring, I mean, your diamond won't stick around.
We can get a thin look, and your designer should be able to get you a thin look, but you need to listen to them when they say, this is what we can do.
Yeah.
This is the thinnest you can possibly do this.
Yep. And are you seeing, the impact of us, again, like wanting those bigger stones, wanting that bigger look? If you had like a super tiny diamond, you'd probably be fine with the thin band.
A thinner diamond,
It's the proportion, right? Of
it's like all about
how
proportion.
It connects that way.
It's all about proportion. And also, if you have a bigger diamond, a thicker band is still going to look nice and skinny on it.
Right, it's an illusion.
It's an optical illusion.
Yeah, and it's going to feel more comfortable on your hand because you're going to feel like you're not worried about losing this all day long. Like, think about that, like, anxiety at all times, wondering if you're going to lose this stone. Because the moment you learn that the likelihood of you losing your stone with your type of ring exists,
you have panic in the back of your head all day long.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
It's a terrible way to live.
And if you have a thin band and a bigger ring, your ring is going to be top heavy, and you're going to find it down here all day long. Like, it's just going to flip and flip and flip and flip. You want to have that metal to support it.
Or even, like, going to the side, like when you're taking photos of rings, you don't want your ring to be to the side closer to this other, part of your hand when you're like, and it's like all the way over here wonky. You want it to really fit snug and sit the way you want it to sit, proportional, centered on your ring. Part of that is also sizing.
Part of it's sizing, part of it's metal holding your ring. The bigger your stone is, the heavier it's going to be. You want to have that extra support. Maybe that is doing a cathedral setting, which simply means there's more metal holding your diamond up. Maybe it is having a thicker band in order to support it, but you need those things.
Yeah. And you should be talking to your jeweler or your designer about what that element is. For us, we talk about it because we believe in it. But if you're working with someone, you really want to make sure if they're not flagging, protecting your diamond, how much metal, what's the likelihood of this thing popping out, red flag.
Red flag. Red flag. Any single designer you talk to, I know I will tell every single person how secure I think it is before we go into it. Or if I think it is secure. Or, oh my gosh, you're my dream. Your ring is so secure. You should be able to talk about insurance policy on what they have warranted and what you should do if you were to lose your diamond. These are all things you need to be able to speak on because you don't want to be the girl that hypothetically lost her diamond. And then what do I do? I have no idea what I do. Oh my goodness. How do I do this? Knowledge is power.
Yeah, totally. And this is such an important piece. You just can't let it go to the wayside and not know those details. Okay, so we talked about cathedral settings. We talked about, toile moi, bezel. What are some other settings or styles that you've seen in trending these days?
Vintage design. Design as a whole. Give me a ring that looks like it was from the 1800s, the 1900s. Those are designs that are super wildly popular right now.
Okay, what's sort of the special notes about those designs comparative to, what you would have seen in the 90s? What's so special about that vintage look?
Yeah, they're usually a little more metal heavy in design. They have a lot of hand engraving to them. Again, beautiful photos, hand engraving. They have beautiful hand engraving designs to them, which simply, it's really magical because it's exactly what it sounds like. It's all engraved by hand. So every ring is kind of a one of one design. When I think heirloom, when I think my great grandmother's ring, I'm going to think that vintage kind of design, something that you won't see when you walk into a traditional jewelry store.
Yeah. And it's not
really,
it's not fighting to be a trend.
No.
It's just it. And it is a classic thing that will never go out of style. And I know that a lot of people worry about that, right? Like we see the thin bands and like it's stylistically great right now, but will it be in 20 years? There's a few different designs that we saw from the 90s that were a little bit more chunky and like
or really, really high set. A really high set stone was huge in the 90s.
And it's like, does that stand the test of time? But if you think about something that's vintage or from the 20s, what have you, I mean, they're still here for a reason.
They're still here for a reason. Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. Okay, is there any other setting I'm not thinking of? I'm trying to think. Or any other part of like designing a setting that you would want to highlight? I mean, I definitely could highlight like general pricing of settings, like with or without diamonds. Because I mean,
it's the thing that's really hard about that is it depends on gold weight. Like if somebody has a big thick band that tapers thinner, like that's a very vintagey design. But like it's all dependent on gold weight.
Okay.
Like I tell every person, if you say like, what is my ring going to cost? I'd say depends on like three things. It depends on your gold weight. It depends on the type of diamonds, if there are any. And it depends on the quality of the stones that you're using.
Okay. So when we talk about price, we all know the center stone is the most expensive part of a diamond ring or, gemstone ring budget, if you will. Talk to me about pricing with a setting, because I think a lot of times when we think about, a ring and we see a photo of a ring, we see it preset with that diamond on there. But when you're actually shopping for a ring, you're choosing a diamond or your stone, and then you're choosing a setting or vice versa. What is sort of the budget around setting, and what sort of changes that budget?
That's a great question. So generally speaking, your setting should always be determined on three things. It should be determined on the type of metal that you're going to use and the amount of metal you're going to use. It's going to determine on if you're putting gemstones or diamonds in your ring and the type that it's going to be and the complexity of the design. If we're going to do something that's super simple, like our solitaire that we were talking about earlier, it's not going to be a very expensive setting, and that's a good thing. A plain setting, if we're talking about something like that, it's going to be a few hundred to a couple $1,000s, generally speaking, depending on diamonds, depending on those things. As you get more and more complex, like if you're going to do a really thick band, maybe it tapers in thinner, we're going to put a lot of gemstones and diamonds in a ring, it's going to be a little more expensive, but I'd say on average, an engagement ring setting can be anywhere from $800 to a few $1,000s.
Okay. So when you think about pairing that, right? So if someone wants to choose that center stone, just really being thoughtful of, okay, if you go up on carat weight or if you go up on certain aspects of your center stone, don't assume you can get the cheapest setting possible, right? Because that setting may not actually have enough metal to hold the stone that you've just chosen. So you really want to be thoughtful about the pairing of those two things.
And if you're going to have a good designer, they're going to tell you that. If I'm working with a bezel setting, I'm going to set the diamond as well as I can, but I'm also going to make sure it's going to last the test of time. You don't want that metal too thin. You don't want it to not be able to work day to day. You don't want that metal to get worn down as you're wearing it, or diamonds in your wedding band to scratch against it and wear it away. Those are all things you have to worry about over the test of time, and it's my job to do that. I need to make your life easy and give you all of those care tips.
Totally. And so when we think about settings, I think we've talked through each sort of general style. What is the craziest setting you've done, or like complex setting story you've done?
I would say that most of my complex designs are going to be my vintage people.
Okay.
I happen to specialize in vintage design. Which is funny because my personal favorite design would be your classic solitaire ring. That is my personal taste for an engagement ring. But I specialize in those very funky design elements. So my clients would say, I want a look like it went through an epic quest to get there. If I had a client that wanted a German architecture ring, so it was German architecture design. I had somebody say, I love butterflies and I want a butterfly kind of look. So we added side stones that made it look honestly like a butterfly, like flower wings were coming out of it.
Wow.
Anything that's a little bit different, a little bit funky, I'm like, sign me up. I'm on board. Let's do it. Let's go to town. Give me a project that you think is impossible, and that's what I want to work on.
Yeah, and those are obviously more fun. You get to be more creative. I mean, we love the classic looks all day, every day, but I think when you can, I mean, you're going through a custom process, you want it to feel
custom. Yeah. I mean, for my classic brides and gentlemen, you can do something that's a little bit different too, whether that is incorporating a gemstone into your ring, whether it's something hidden that nobody else is going to see, whether that's an engraving that nobody else is going to see. You can always add that little flair and that little touch to it to make it a one-of-one special piece. But those like more intricate designs, I would find them a little more rewarding at the end of the day when you find that thing that's like, I've never seen anything like this before. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny because I know as a team, we talk a lot about the different rings that our team are, working on, designing. And even across our team, when folks start to get really creative and work with the right designer, everyone's thrilled at like this crazy thing we were able to put together and a design that you literally just never seen before.
I'm blown away every single day of the talent of our designers. Truly, like what we can come up with is just impeccable. I find often that people come and they're like, I want a spooky vibe to my ring. I don't know how I want to do it, but I don't want it to look spooky in the sense of like spider webs and like snakes. Like I just want it to have that kind of element to it. And I'm like, let's get a mood going. Let's do it.
I love that.
You can do just about anything with a ring. I mean, we custom craft everything. So I really like to go a little bit into the why somebody likes something and bring that out.
So we know we love an extravagant design on our setting, but sometimes things change over time. For instance, our finger sizes change, or maybe we need to get a different center stone. We want to keep that setting. What are some things we should think about when we have these really, sort of specialty settings, but something has to change later on?
Our fingers are the most finicky parts of our body too, because as you age, as you grow, your ring size often changes. One thing I like to tell everybody is eternity bands, which means there's diamonds all the way around. I like to avoid those simply because if you need to resize your ring, there's no metal to then cut into to then add or remove from. So usually I tell people add diamonds halfway down, add them 3/4 the way down. Don't add it all the way down. Same goes for some of your funky band designs. You still want to keep that about 3/4 the way down at the most, because if you cut into it, it can hurt the band sometimes when it comes to looking at it. Because when you're looking at it, if it's hand engraved or there's some sort of in detail to it, when you cut in and add or remove metal, you can't kind of put it back together the exact same way.
Right. So you really want to keep like the bottom fourth at minimum of your ring kind of free and
just able to do things. And it doesn't hurt the design at all to do that, because it's going to be hiding down here anyway. Nobody's going to see it at the end of the day. It's something you have to keep in mind that you're not looking down here at your ring. You're going to be staring at it up here. So it's good. It's good.
And I think that's good too, because, we want these to be heirloom pieces, right? I might be a certain ring size, but my daughter, when she grows up and is ready to have her ring, she might have a different ring size. And so just giving yourself that little room to make sure you can still have a full blinged out look.
Absolutely.
But let's just make sure that we have room to grow it or size down if we need to.
I have little itty bitty baby hands. I have inherited a lot of my mom's rings. My mom was about 2 sizes bigger than me. So I was able to size down a lot of those rings to be able to wear them. I would say rings on average can be sized about 2 sizes up or 2 sizes down, depending on the design. That's usually that like happy middle of where you can resize that ring. If it has to go up more than that or down more than that, you need to talk to somebody who specializes in the industry to be able to figure out your options and what you can do with it.
How you can recreate it. So it sounds like eternity bands are kind of out for that, but we can do eternity bands for like the wedding band.
Because the wedding bands are typically less expensive too. So it's a lot easier to then get another wedding band down the road and get a get out of jail free card for your spouse and significant other than it is to reset your engagement ring. Again, you want it to be timeless and flawless and elegant and be able to be something you can wear over and over again.
Love that. Okay, great. So I'll close us out with our setting. So If you are working with a client and you're designing their setting,
Okay.
what's the last piece of advice you would give them as they're thinking about that initial design?
I would say focus on what you like and what you want to like for your ring. Work with your designer, tell them what you want and what you don't. If you really don't vibe with something, tell them that. But don't get too caught up in it. And what I mean by that is a lot of people, they start looking at it too technically. They look at those technical design measurements and those technical little itty bitty things that this little piece of metal I don't know if I like. Rings are made in little teeny itty bitty sizes because rings are small. Don't get so caught up in those little itty bitty looks that you're going to lose the magic of, I'm getting engaged right now. I am making an engagement ring. Like, it should be exciting. And you need to just be able to have that relationship with your designer. I want every single person that I work with to trust me and know, I know you. I have your design in mind. And that's how you should feel. You should know that that trust is there and they're going to get you something you're going to be excited about. They should be excited about making it for you.
Yeah, totally. I love that.
Enjoy it. Do not get too caught up in the moment in the sense where you forget that that magic is happening and what you're doing it for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Jesse. We've learned a lot about settings, and the fact at the end of the day is your setting is protecting your baby.
Yes, it is.
Which is your center stone. And so it is very important. It should be secure, but should also be very much your style and fit your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.